Hey, welcome to One More Rep with Coach Walker. I'm your host, Coach Walker. And today we are coming to you, I'm coming to you with part 2 of my ACL return to play protocol episodes, just to kind of give you the rundown, like I said before, of what my program looks like, what a day, how I progressed it, and how I set it up. But kind of what I realized that I did, the thing that I haven't done, it's kind of give you a background, like who I am, like what my background looks like as far as when it comes to ACL, instead of just jumping out and saying, oh, this is my protocol and you should follow it. So over the course of a 16-year career being in sports performance, sports strength and conditioning, health and wellness, the whole gamut of what that looks like, I've worked with a number of different athletes and just injuries in general, just specifically. I've done the rehab and the return to play for 10 ACLs, currently 1 patella tendon that I know of, 2 double knee replacements for the older population. Torn meniscus is anywhere between 10 and 20, whether it's been me doing direct return to play or recovery, or me giving you some type of advice, kind of talking you through some type of consultation. Just keeping it lower extremity. I've done one hip labrum that I'm aware of. One that was just a complete mystery injury, that had no specific diagnosis, just complete loss of normal function at the knee, at both knees, just getting them from dysfunction to normal function. This was pre-COVID. And then one that was I forget the exact diagnosis, but they had a surgery that took them from being able to run 2 miles in under 13 minutes to where they could barely walk, and getting them back to function to where they could actually stay in the Army. So it's been a number of different injuries that I've been able to work with, whether it be me alone developing a protocol or me alongside of an athletic trainer or physical therapist developing a protocol. And that's just talking about lower extremities. I've done a number of other injuries, but we're just sticking with our ACL protocol today. Just kind of walk you through how I go about developing it. So over the last, 9 months, we're in month 9, I have worked with 9 ACLs and successfully gotten 7 back on the playing field, or I'm in the process of getting like my last 2 cleared here come October, to where they're going to be fully returned to play. Other ones there right now, or they're at a minimum. Everything they've been cleared for everything except for full contact or cutting or something to that effect. And some of the other ones, they're just a little bit, they're not at that point where they can get cleared yet. They're still in the protocol. But just kind of walking you through how I set the program up. So I always get not always. I operate off the ACL reconstruction post-op protocol that comes from the clinic, from the 2 physicians that I am not currently getting athletes from. And again, like I said before, I am typically getting the athletes in phase 3, which is weeks 8 through 12. The youngest in that protocol I've gotten is at week 8. Most everybody else I'm getting around that week 12 time frame, maybe sometimes week 13, depending on where they come out of physical therapy. But I base my protocol based on what I develop, and my workouts I base it upon that time frame. What does phase 3 look like? And so phase 3, the basics of phase 3, it looks like you progress and maintain full range of motion. So whatever that takes to maintain full range of motion, specifically at the knee joint, whether it be right or left, doesn't matter. That's what we're going to be doing. And then we're also going to continue working on proprioception and building quadricep strengthening and hip strengthening. So those basic bullet points of what you're trying to accomplish, we build into the program. So to kind of let you know, when I first started building this program out was the beginning of January. Again, my first ACL that I did was back in 2020. Top end of when COVID first hit, and we were outdoors and kind of built up some things like that, but they were like further along, so we could do everything at that point. But specifically for what I did with this protocol, we kept it simple at the beginning because it was more or less me going through the process, looking at what this athlete, this student athlete could do based upon the feedback I got from the physical therapist, him as the athlete himself and his dad, because his dad, this was one of the best parts about building this program at the beginning. The dad of this one athlete, he was present, so he could kind of give me the overview of what his son looked like prior to the injury. So I can so we had that, so he could kind of gauge as we went, okay, this is what he looked like before, this is what he's looking like now, how far off is he? So early on, and this warm-up has stayed the same throughout, and I've used this warm-up for years because it's basic, it's simple, but it serves to get everybody ready for physical activity, and it has some components of injury prevention, which obviously, if it's injury prevention, is going to help these athletes for injury return to play. So we start with our basic warm-up. We're going walking knee hugs, walking quad pulls, toe grabs, or whatever you want to call them, toy soldiers. And then it depends on if they are available to do lateral lunges, and if they are not ready to do lateral lunges, we'll do toy soldiers or walking lunges, or we'll do the lateral lunges. High knees and butt kicks, and all these exercises are going anywhere from 10 to 15 yards out and back. And then we are going to do internal and external rotation at the shoulder, because again, we're doing total body now. We're not just focused on the knee. We are going to go from toe touches, jumping jack squats, and push-ups. And at this point in time, depending on if there's any limitations, notes placed in their protocol by the physician, the PT, whether it's they can't squat below 90 degrees, or everything has to be ground-based, because we're talking about weeks 8 through 12. Everything's going to be ground-based. We're not going to be doing any real jumping. So go through that warm up, and then so we're gonna walk you through. I think this was this is our first workout that we did. So we did the hip circle band walks. We put that above and below the knee, and we did lateral walks with that. About, at the time, we were doing maybe 10 yards out, 10 yards back in. Hit it with some kettlebell swings. Get that posterior chain engaged. We were doing anywhere from 2 to 3 sets of that. And then we would go to some level of a bench press, and what I was doing was single, double, hold the dumbbells up, 5 one side, 5 the other side, 5 together. Just basically getting that unilateral work in, that bilateral work in, and basically building the foundation of strength, because by and large, while some athletes are training and doing some things outside of their actual PT during the time before they actually come to me, my job is to return you to the field. So that's a complete total body workout is what we're going to do. And so the reality is, for a lot of these kids, when they're coming in, I'm getting them about 2 to 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or some variation of that. So I have the opportunity to build a strong foundation early on and throughout whatever time frame, because right now I'm getting a lot of my kids, and they're staying for, at a minimum, 3 to 4 months, maximum they're going to stay maybe 6 months. It's somewhere in that time frame. So we go from bench press, we hit the glute bridges, again, upper lower body kind of split here, and everything is going to be rep ranges. You kind of set your own rep ranges, but 10 reps is going to be the max. On some of the movements, the single, double, we're going 5 single arms reps, and then we go probably 8 double reps. From there, we hit our single leg cable deadlift, because that's something that mimics some of the movements that they may have done in PT, just adding my twist on it as to what we're going to do over there. Single leg get ups, basically a single leg squat, but we're not going that deep. We're going maybe to a regular bench that's about 18 inches. If 18 inches seems a little bit low, we might throw a pad on it that makes it, maybe brings it up to 20 to 21 inches, just going to where they can handle. And we have variations of what that movement looks like, where it can be full single leg to where the foot is off the ground, or we're doing a kickstand version. Actually, that's what we started off. We start off with that 8 to 12 weeks. We're going to be doing a kickstand version. So the opposite leg, the heel is going to be down, and you're going to be pressing through one prime mover, but it's going to be obviously maybe like an 80-20 on the strength, 80-20 on the involvement of the good leg, or the involved leg, versus the good leg that's going to be in the kickstand position. And across the board, everything's going to be the unilateral movements that we do. We're going to do both sides. So at the end up, you're going to get that work on both sides, because we want to make sure we create balance as we go through this program. Then once we finish there, we're going to go to, we did a push press, just get that overhead press in motion, and then getting back to creating force from the ground up, using that kinetic chain and using the lower body to generate force. And there's not going to be a lot of stress on the low body because we're not going to be going heavy on, especially in these early stages. We're going to, again, laying our foundation. And then from there, just keeping it simple because we want to have that accessory work. On this day, on this particular workout, we threw calf raises in there. Again, lower extremity, strengthen below the knee, above the knee. So this is our below the knee movement. And I can tell you now, I throw in calf raises, tib raises, things like that, good mornings as our accessory work at the end, just because it closes out before we maybe hit our agility work. And it's just for all of my programming across the board because we want to make sure we're getting that accessory work. And we do our warm up at the beginning, accessory work at the end. Some of the accessory work at the end is because why not? You may choose to do it differently. Then we hit our bird dog for that core stability. And being mobile and being able to be able to stabilize in those particular positions. And what I use, and it's something that I've developed over the years from when I was doing just regular strength training, what I call the iron cradle Y raise. It's just a cradle position where you're sitting up in that kind of, if you do the Russian twist, dumbbell twist with the feet up, it's similar to that position, but now it's going to be a dumbbell raise here at the shoulders here because now I got to stabilize the posterior chain and not let yourself fall back. So we're just doing different things to engage the entire body. Then from there, we're doing like a band resisted lateral shuffle. And again, 8 to 12 weeks, that shuffle is going to be very slow. It's not slow, but it's not going to be as aggressive or violent as it would be for a non-injured athlete. Then it was more of a high knee jog because this particular athlete, he was far ahead of where he should have been at that point in time. He wasn't like your typical kid, I won't even say typical kid. He wasn't your athlete that came in and they are just cleared. He was physically ready to do some light level running, and it was not cleared with this PT at the time, so we were doing light jogs, and it was again 5 to 10 yards. That's all we're doing then. So my whole philosophy, and I got this from way back when I was interning, maximum effort, maximum recovery, and that maximum effort looks different based upon where you are in your program. And then we did some level of a sprint to shuffle to where we were kind of keeping a straight line, those types of things, to where we're not doing too much. And then a lot of this stuff, once we got a feel for it, we were using cleats because we were on the turf for a lot of stuff. And we wanted to minimize that sliding effect and that loss of foot position on the turf, because obviously turf isn't always going to be the most stable surface. So we want to make sure we put them in a more stable position, the safest position possible. And cleats give that, especially when we're dealing with soccer players and football players. So that's just kind of what we did for that first workout. And as we progressed, what I learned is, when I was building this program out, is that the way I interpret single leg and double leg is different than what the protocol says, because they're looking at it from a physician standpoint. I am looking at it from a strength and conditioning coach's standpoint. So single leg to them and double leg to them is primarily speaking to, from what I've seen, I could be wrong, but what I've seen over the last 9 months, it's the landing or the takeoff position when you are doing jumps and things of that nature. But I think it's more so the landing position, because every time when I confirm with the athlete, they'll tell me, as long as it's a double leg landing, I'm good to go. And just the directions, whether it's lateral, diagonal, the cuts and things of nature. So that's what it looks like. So weeks 12 to 16 is what we start looking at. This is phase 4, where we get into, we begin light walking, jogging for exercise, begin stationary bike for exercises, begin light plyometrics, this is where we get into that two-leg jumping, light hopping, anterior and posterior, light two-leg jumping. So when you look at all of this stuff, and what you have to realize is two, they are returning for visits as athletes to the PT or the surgeon every 4-ish weeks or whatever to get clear for the next phase. So for me, if I get you at weeks 12, between week 8 and 12, I'll be doing a lot of this stuff during that time frame, because it doesn't help me to just stick with the protocol for phase 3 when I know you're going to be tested for some of the things that for phase 4. So I have to basically plan ahead, and it won't be like, oh, the first week you come in, we're going to be doing phase 4. We're going to build it in once I figure out, okay, you move well, establish the foundation, and then we'll build in small things. We'll start doing light jumps, and the jumps can start as low as 6-inch box jumps, because the 3-inch box jump just realistically is just a waste of time. It's going to make the athlete feel like, why am I here? And it's going to be, okay, I can do more. And so you want to safely do more. You don't want to go from, okay, yeah, we're going to go do an 18 or 36-inch box jump. We're going to go, okay, we're going to progress you. We'll go 6-inch box jump. Okay, that's easy. Let's go 9-inch box jump. Okay, that might be the sweet spot for that day, but next week, we know we did 9 last week. How do you feel trying 12? Okay, 12 feels good, and then we progress that way. And so you kind of have your incremental jumps that way. And when you start looking at this program, now when we start looking at light jogging, we grade it out for 30%, 40%, 50%, somewhere in that range, to where you're going, but you're not really going, to where we know, okay, there's more in the tank, but right now I just want you to get used to loading that leg and pushing off and being in those single leg stances over as your legs turn over. In a more consistent basis. What we do here is we start to increase the running and things of that nature. And on the bike, and this is something I learned early on when we start using your interval training, you want to keep your intervals short, to where, like, I'm talking, we're doing anywhere between 10 and 15 second light sprint type of drills, and then we'll have a 30 to 45 second recovery, and then we'll go back and forth between those two, between sprint and recovery. Again, so we're getting the legs back involved, to let them know that, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're used to doing. And then again, too, we're building up the condition, because again, return to play, we need you to be ready to actually play in your sport 6 months down the line, 4 months down the line, whenever I'm getting you. And once they are clear, so with the 2-foot jumping, we do box jumps. We do, at this time, we'll do box jumps, and then early on it was just box jumps. As we progressed and I kind of saw what athletes could do and where they were, and then started talking to them individually and learning, okay, they were lifting weights outside of here. Some of them were starting to run on their own outside of here, and it was just realizing that, okay, this isn't the only training that they're doing, and they are doing other things. And then we just kind of have those conversations to make sure they're doing it safely outside of here. Okay, I can progress a little bit more, because they're doing the work to make sure that they're keeping up with what we have going on here. So we might add in broad jumps. And again, it's low level, to where we're not trying to jump 8 feet. We might be jumping 20, whatever the power output is different based upon the athlete. Anywhere from 6 to maybe 24 feet, 24 inches out, whatever they look like. And as we continue to do that, we might add in a resisted band jump. Those types of things are where we want to make sure we focus on the landing first, being able to be aggressive in the jump and soft and glide into that landing, so you pick where you want to go. And again, with all of our jumps, we're learning how to land low, light, and tight. Load the muscle, not the joint, being able to control how we land, so we are not putting the joint under undue stress from the jolt of the actual landing. So once they get cleared there, then they progress to phase 5, which is 4 to 6 months, and that's straight line jogging. Again, by the time we get here, we've already done straight line jogging, and now the way the program is set up, for some of my athletes, we probably have done even some light cone drills, where we are setting up maybe a 4-cone drill where they go straight line running. Again, these cone drills are about 5 yards. 5 yards in the box. So 5 yards to a run, a lateral, a light shuffle to the side, a back pedal coming backwards, and then maybe a run across, or maybe a shuffle across. Keeping it simple, keeping the movements to where they are progressing, and we can do it in a safe manner, because again, we're in a controlled environment, so we can control many factors, to where we can see, okay, does that shuffle look good? Do we need to hold off on the shuffle? Do we need to just shuffle going one way today, and then we may add in a second shuffle going the other way, maybe later on this week or next week when we feel a little bit more comfortable in how they move. And you just kind of look at what your athletes are giving you, what they're bringing to the table. Some athletes, we can bump it up a little bit faster, but looking at where they're at this stage, where they can do the straight line running, and then we also add in plyometric exercises to include two-leg jumping, lateral movement, diagonal movement, and controlled landing activities. Like we said, those bandit jumps, lateral shuffles, things like that. Progress to single leg plyometric exercises. So this might be a single leg takeoff on a box jump with a 2-foot landing. So we do a lot of that. So we learn how to load that single leg position, and then we start landing 2 feet. But then also, again, we can start it going low. And now this is where the 3-inch box, if you have it, or even if it's going from, if you have different levels in your gym to where you have a step up, a little, what is it called, curb type of thing, to where you can just jump there, where you start single leg to single leg. So you go 3 inches and you start laying there, and you'll find out that, and we know this as fitness professional strength and conditioning coaches, a lot of people are not doing a lot of single leg work, so their hips don't know how to stabilize in those planes. So that 3-inch box jump is going to be a lot for somebody who hasn't done that work. So it's going to be just enough to start the challenge, and then again you bump it up to 6 and kind of continue to progress from there. And you do everything you need to do to build the strength up. And so what we're looking at here, we do our single leg jumps. With the single leg get-ups, now we are trying to do a little bit more without the kickstand position, without that extra help. If we can get to that point, we're loading that position now with the dumbbell. So we are holding anywhere from an 8 to a 12-pound dumbbell in that goblet squat position here, standing up and down. And we are going to focus more on the control of coming down and not just flopping down, so we engage those glutes and hamstrings a little bit more. And we also add in our Nordic iso hold. So I don't do a lot of the full all the way down, all the way up, right, especially early on. We will do an iso hold where we strap them onto the bench. They go into a position to where it can be, so if this is neutral and they come about here or anywhere in between, lock into that position for either anywhere from a 3 1,000 count to a 5 1,000 count. Push yourself back up, or pull yourself back up, or you push yourself back up off the bench. You can fall on down and get on up. We're doing about 3 sets of 5 of that. And everything that we set up is kind of superset style, because we just want to we want to maximize our time, because typically everybody's coming in for about an hour. We get that work done, and then we get them on to the next phase. A lot of our single leg stuff is going, we start our lateral bounds, hopping side to side, or we hop side to side. We hop one side and take off on a sprint. We might load it with a medicine ball to where we go single leg, boom, stick it for 1,000, and then we do a push out with the ball and take off into a sprint behind it, because now we're looking at being faster, more explosive, and we're putting force into the ground, because we've done our groundwork to make sure that athletes are ready for what they need to do on the actual sport field. And then even in the same time frame, what I've done more of now in the last probably since the summer, and I want to say probably since around July, is putting athletes in athletic positions to where you're not always going to be standing up going in a straight line sprint. So if I have a defensive end, we're going from a defensive end position, and we're starting to do a lot of those movements. We are putting our hand in the dirt. We're going through the cadence of sliding down, sliding out, to going from our hand in the dirt to standing up to going back down, sprinting, cutting, all these things. Everything that you're going to be cleared for, things that are going to be transferred back to your sport, we're doing those things because we want to make sure you're ready. If you are a baseball player, we're sliding our feet and taking off. If you're a cross country athlete, you're doing more straight line stuff, but we're also going to add in some sprints, because I need you to be able to have that kick in your speed to where you can push off. Basketball players, you're doing your slides, you're doing your back pedals. Football players, I have a ton of drills for football players and soccer players that I can kind of build in, and I just kind of pull from those actual positions and put everybody else into some variation of that cone drill. Again, I try to get everybody to do these drills in cleats, because it's the safest thing on the turf. If you don't have cleats, we just emphasize exaggerating the stop and load that outside leg, feel the load and push off to where you want to go. Aim yourself where you want to go. One of the drills that I do like a lot, and I use this no injured or not, I call it the stack drill. All is maybe 10 cones, anywhere up maybe 10 to 20 cones, whatever it looks like. 20 is a lot, so probably like 10 to 15. And all you're doing is you shuffle hard across, and your spacing is very small between, maybe it's less than 3 yards between the cones going up and down. So you basically shuffle across and you load that outside leg and you shoot at an angle, sprint hard at an angle to the next one. So it's zigzag, but you are actually learning to load that outside leg, sit down low into your position, and being able to control where you go and not drift around in a small space. So that one works really well for a lot of athletes that we have in. And so we just keep progressing until we get to the phase 6, which is 6 to 12 months, and now you're out here with a medical clearance. And so what you get here: return to running, return to sport specific drills, return to cutting, jumping, and lateral movements as allowed by the medical doctor, and return to sports as allowed. So at this point, I am still working with a lot of athletes that are at this point. We've been cleared to run. We've been cleared to sport-specific drills. So now for us, that means that they're not having contact, but doing the cone drills that we have, because that's what we have most available to us here. We're doing a lot of different types of jumps, so we're not just jumping onto the box forward. We might come from a seated position and jump up onto the box, coming backwards, and then go to a depth jump, to a sprint. There's a lot of things that we do that get very dynamic. I wish I could post a lot more of the videos, but I gotta get those things signed off on from the parents. A lot of them, they will sign off. I just gotta get the paperwork done for that. But it just gets very dynamic at this point, to where now I can tell you without a doubt, my return to play program is harder than my sports performance program, because I see my return to play players anywhere, again, from 2 to 3 times a week. Some of them, they scale down to like once a week once they reach 6 to 7, in that 6 to 9 month range, but they're still active in their sport at this point. Because I have a cross country athlete, she's back into cross country, and she's running buku miles. I think she's running something like anywhere between 15 and 20 something miles a week, which is crazy to me, and to only run a 3-mile race on the weekends. But she is running, she's handling it, and we talk a lot about her recovery exercises that she needs to make sure she's doing. But once we get into this stage, now again, we are geared towards getting you back on the field. And once you're here, once you are at that point to where you're about to be clear, there should be no doubt in my mind, your mind, anybody's mind, that okay, this athlete is ready. It just is what it is. Like, your job is to get them back on the field. My job is to get them back on the field. And as I follow this program, the biggest thing that I can tell you is don't be locked into what you're doing. You want to have your box in which you operate in, but make sure the walls of that box can be broken down so you can go ahead and branch out and try something different. The biggest thing about your program, it should early on give you many, quote unquote, mini heart attacks when you see your athletes move. Like, did I move too fast? Did I not do? Am I progressing too fast? Especially if you see them slip or whatever, you see them trip over a box, and typically they're going to trip over that 3 or that 6-inch box, just because it looks easy, but they're just their body's readjusting to it. But once you get to that 18, 20, 36-inch box, you're probably never going to see them trip at all, because I haven't, knock on wood, all of my athletes, when they trip is at that short box. But when we start adding in the progression and the challenge, they rise to the challenge every time, and they show up and they're ready to work. But when you're setting this program up, just be smart early on, be cautious early on, but be aggressive when you need to. Because again, if you're not doing things that are going to get them back on the field, you're wasting everybody's time. You're wasting your time. Your program's not going to be the program everybody wants it to be. Because again, I've gotten athletes from other programs that were not as well thought out, and they train them for 9 months. They come to me and they're still not ready to get back on the field. They're not getting cleared by the MD. They still have a lot of valgus. The joints aren't lining up the right way. And so I have to go back and I have to correct those things. And granted, and thankfully, I have the ability to do those things, but you're not going to catch everybody that early. Sometimes those injuries, and I know that this one facility, They went to this facility. The other athletes that have not come to me, but I've heard the stories where they went to the facility, had an injury, had an ACL, returned to play, went to them for however long, got back on the field, tore the ACL again. And that's why you always have to make sure you vet the programs you're using, and you as the parent, as the athlete, vet the program. But as the coach, you want to be smart about what you're doing. Look at different sources. Be smart about what you're putting in front of your athletes to help them get better, but don't sit around here just doing things just because you want to do it, because at the end of the day, it all adds up to getting this athlete to where they want to need to be. So be smart in your training, be thoughtful, follow the protocol. If you have access to this protocol for your athletes, definitely follow it, build your program around it, and I'll guarantee you will put a great product out there. You help a lot of athletes. It's Coach Walker. Remember, maximize, improve, and excel. Train like you mean it, and I'll see you in the next one.